There were good old days when I read as much as I wanted, anytime, any day. But a girl lost it on the way, and a girl is trying to find her way back to her reading passion, and it's been wonderful. So today I want to share with you guys 5 books that I read as a child that helped build my imagination and self-improvement as a child. I'm sharing 5 of them. Let's go. Hello, beautiful people. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome back. If you are new here, you're welcome to my channel. My name is Victoria. I'm here talking about books that I'm reading, books that I've read in a quest to find my way back to my passion. If you love reading, if you love books, and maybe you are on a quest to finding yourself, to just hit the subscribe button and stay with me so you miss nothing coming from. You can also give the video a thumbs up and share it so that others get to see it. As a child, I read voraciously. I read everything I saw. That gave me a lot of joy because I was really passionate about reading, and today I'm sharing 5 of those books that helped my imagination and self-improvement. The first of those books is Gullivers Travel by Jonathan Swift. It's an adventure fiction published in 1726. Looking back then, I didn't care if it was if it was fiction or non-fiction. I didn't care because I believed everything I read. Like, I believed they all were true. The story is basically about a man whose name is Lemuel Gulliver, a sea surgeon who went through a lot of mishaps in his journey. His first stop was at Lilliput. That was in the book. That's when I read it. It was that he stopped at Lilliput that was at the cover, where he was tied with tiny ropes and little men surrounding him. He was like the biggest man they had ever seen. His day was kind of going well till he caused trouble by putting out a fire in the palace with his bees. That really made the king angry, and they sought to kill him, but he was lucky and he got away, found his way home. Then after that one, he set out on another journey to Broaden Nag. That one was a land of giants, like big people. He was the smallest. Then it was an irony to me because at Lilliput, he was the biggest man, he was a giant. Now at Broaden Nag, he is a Lilliputian, the smallest person around them. So they really found him interesting because he was small. They made a small house for him in a cage. He was discussing with the king about England and how people behaved. And then his luck was not so much on his side because one day an eagle threw his cage. I said his comfortable home, but that was a cage, a small cage, threw it inside the river, inside the sea actually. But he was lucky that a ship found him and those on board rescued him, and he found his way back to England. And another one, he set out on another journey. He found himself in another island. There were 2 or more. One was above, which was called Laputa. Laputa is made up of professors, scientists, doctors, intellectuals of all kinds. In fact, those people were too intelligent and too smart, too innovative for in fact, they were too smart. And then there is this island below called Bambabi. Those ones were not as smart as those at Laputa. They were considered average or low. Then after that, after a series of travels, he found his way back to England, and the guy set out on another journey at Hunims. Hunims. That should be the pronunciation. Hunims. This one is a land of horse-like creatures who were served by human-like creatures. The human-like creatures were called Yahoos. Okay, there were 7 the horse-like creatures. This book actually looked at life in a different way. It explored the possibilities of any kind of existence. That's one thing about fantasies and fiction. It brings to life what does not exist. Maybe as a child, I believed that all those things existed. As in, I was like, one day I would go to the land of giants, like not really giant, but that's how those people are, like big people or small people. I really wanted to take that adventure myself. It's really taught me the diversity of human existence, and until I grew up and knew that they were fiction, but I still believe that there are people like that, and people are different in many ways. God created us that way, so that really helps my imagination, seeing the diversity of God's creation, the diversity of human existence. It opened my mind to see more than my immediate environment. The second book that helped improve my self-imagination as a child is Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne, a French writer. It was published in 1873. It talked about a man whose name is Phileas Fogg. who went into a bet, into a wager, because he read in the newspaper that morning that one can travel around the world in 80 days because there was a railroad that was recently completed. So he was in the Reform Club and he went into a wager, and the price was 20,000 euros. You can imagine the worth of 20,000 euros at that time. So he accepted the wager to go around the world in 80 days, be back, and take his money. So he was accompanied by his valet, Jean. They set off for the journey, both of them, but they had no idea that a detective Fix, was following them because there was a crime that morning, I think, or there was a crime that he was investigating, and the man who committed the crime had the same descriptions as Fogg. So he was trailing him so as to arrest him, but without them knowing, that was how Detective Fix joined them in the adventure, and he actually completed the adventure with them without planning to. Then on their way, they met another person, a princess, Alda, who was about to be killed, like buried alive even. She was about to be buried alive with her husband, and to her luck, they saved her and she joined them on the journey to meet a relative which had moved, and she has to join them throughout the journey. Left to Fogg alone, he would have completed that adventure. He would have completed it in less than 80 days and be back, but his valet keeps getting in trouble, causing trouble, and bringing trouble that delays them. They made it back, but they were 5 minutes late, and then he had spent so much money buying elephants so that as to meet up with the other train, buying a ship to burn the wood. In fact, he spent so much money on that journey, and when he came back, he was 5 minutes late, and he lost it, and he was a poor man. The princess Alda actually proposed to him to marry him, and then his valet found out one way or the other that they had actually lost count of the day because they moved between time zones, and they lost count of one day, which means they actually arrived at the 79th day and they were in time. He had to go back and claim his wager and got his money. That book was very, very interesting. I enjoyed reading it then. It was because of that book that I started looking at newspapers and magazines. I was not doing that before. I didn't like watching news or anything concerning news. Because of that book, I started looking at magazines and newspapers. That actually helped me out years later in an incident that happened in my class. Okay, let me tell you guys a story. A teacher of mine, he was serving at that time and doing his service in our school. So he walked into our class one day, surely feeling himself. I was like, he has a question. He was so sure nobody was going to answer that question. So if anybody should answer it, he would give the person his phone. Then he walked to the board, wrote GEJ, and walked to the corner of the class and stood. And he said, if anybody can tell me the meaning of GEJ, I'll give the person my phone. I was like, wow. Coincidentally, I've seen that GEJ in the comic section of a newspaper during the holidays before coming back for school that time. So I raised my hand, stood up, answered, good luck, Ebere Jonathan. He ran mad. This was his phone he wagered for just such a cheap question. That was the initials of our president at that time. So he was so mad that somebody knew it. I can't help but think now that he acted like Herod at that time. But did he give me his phone? I'll tell you guys at the end of the videos. The third book that helped build my imagination as a child is Macbeth by William Shakespeare. Before now, I would have called it Macbeth or Macbeth. To be sincere, I learned the correct pronunciation last night. We learn every day. So it was a tragedy published in 1623. To be sincere, that was the hardest, the most difficult book I read then. With their thou and thou shalt, the thing gave me a lot of headache. But 11-year-old me will not leave it. I wanted to see what happened to Macbeth, what happened to the wife, the three witches. So I continued reading. Although I was lost in some places, I glanced through a few of the pages, but I just wanted to get to where the action was, see what happened, and see how it all ended. That book gave me tough time. I read some Igbo novels. I read Ukwaroge. I read Onyomemeka, but even the Igbo novels did not give me trouble as Macbeth gave me. That book, that was the first of Shakespeare's book I read. I later read Tempest and other Shakespeare books. when I got to secondary school, though it was an open door for me in reading books written in Old English. The fourth book that helped build my imagination as a child is Silence Manner, a fiction by George Eliot, published in 1861. It was in that book that I first saw the word trance. The sad thing about it is that I didn't get to finish it. The reason being that I lost it. I took it to school and I lost it. That was actually not the first of those books that I lost in school. Most of the books that I do pack in my siblings' books that I do pack and go to school with, I lost like half of them, 50% of them. I hope my dad doesn't see this. I lost most of those books. Anyway, it was while reading it that I started looking up words in the dictionary. I started learning how to use a dictionary. It was a dictionary opener for me. The last but not the least, the fifth book that I read that helped my imagination and self-improvement as a child is Oliver Twist, a fiction by Charles Dickens, published in 1838. The book is familiar to everyone. If you've not read it, you must have heard Oliver Wants Some More, Oliver Twist. So it's a popular book. The story tells of the sad experiences of a child, his hunger, his escapades, and his eventual discovery of his relation. Life has different troubles that it dishes out to every one of us. So, but the book made me know that everyone has troubles, difficulties, that life will surely dish us out with it. So I was expectant of the troubles to come. I knew that every day was not going to be bed of roses. So the book taught me that. That was it for the 5 books that I read that helped my imagination as a child. It's been so much fun trying to remember and recalling these books. Thank you for watching to the end. Thank you for staying with me. And my teacher did not give me that phone. He did not give it to me. He gave me 200 naira instead. I think he was not a coward like Herod. He admitted he made a wrong promise, a bad one. So he used another thing to replace it instead of giving me his phone or cutting John the Baptist's head. That was it. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and share it. And if you haven't subscribed, just subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.